Hello, everyone, and welcome to the sharing group. I am so excited, y'all. I am so excited for today's guest. Today's lesson of A Course in Miracles is lesson 80, which states, "Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Let me recognize my problems have been solved." And today's guest, y'all, is an excellent demonstration that what we may perceive as problems could be simply opportunities that we have planned for our growth. Aaron Thomas Green has had one of the most profound near-death experience accounts I have heard, where he has been able to retain an incredibly detailed account of his pre-birth planning. So I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Aaron, for being here. We are
All right, thank you.
to have you. Yes. So you can start with your near-death experience, and then just take us into what you have for us today.
All right, sure. So just a little short background about me. I was born in Durham, North Carolina in 1975. And when I was 2, my parents moved to Chesapeake, Virginia. It's near Norfolk and Virginia Beach, if you're not familiar with the area. Anyway, we lived in a suburban house. I had an older brother, and we had some dogs growing up. Um, my parents took me to a Catholic church when I was growing up. I'm now more um, I guess Protestant in nature. Anyway, I think I had a fairly normal childhood in suburbia. Back then we didn't have computers and cell phones, that kind of stuff. So we would run around the neighborhood. There's lots of neighborhood kids. We'd all get together, do whatever. Well, one day I was in a neighbor's backyard with my brother and maybe 5 other neighborhood kids, just playing, doing whatever kids do. And I developed a breathing difficulty. I'm not sure what happened or what we were doing before this, but somehow I couldn't breathe. We had been playing and everything was great, and then I developed this breathing problem, and I can't get a breath in no matter what I do. And it was becoming increasingly upsetting and difficult. And I realized, okay, I should go home. So I started walking towards home, and I couldn't breathe. I got maybe 20, 30 feet away from my friends, and I just couldn't breathe. And I didn't pass out, but my consciousness actually left my body. 1 second I can't breathe. I'm trying to walk back home, and then the next moment I'm literally outside of my body, and I watch as my body falls to the ground, and I'm just like floating there, looking around. And it was immediately obvious that something has completely changed. This whole reality has shifted and changed, and I'm now in what I would consider to be like a different realm. It was almost like it was parallel to our physical realm. I guess that's the best way I could describe it. It's kind of like the same and yet different. Um, and a couple of things immediately stood out to me. I'm obviously something different than this body. This body is not who I am. I'm this consciousness that can exist independent of the body. Um, the flow of time was just fundamentally different. There's not how time works that I couldn't really explain. And it was like waking up from a dream. Only this reality, this life that we're all living, is the dream, and I was like waking up into a higher reality. I was more intelligent, more self-aware. It was more real existing like that than it is existing in this current reality that we're all in. Living these lives. Anyway, I look back at my friends and the breathing trouble, and it had seemed so important, obviously, as a person. But when I was in this new reality, just floating there, it seemed almost trivial. It didn't seem important at all. And almost immediately, my entire life replayed for me. I like re-experienced everything I had done in life up, from birth all the way to that to the breathing difficulty. It all like flashed in front of me in a fraction of a second, and it was extremely detailed. Like nothing was left out. Every moment of every day was covered, and yet it was just like a split second. Like every detail of 6 years of life flashed by in an instant in detail. And one thing that was important and a little bit different is that not only could I experience all of that from my perspective as a kid, but I also I literally felt my the feelings that my parents had during those 6 years. How I had impacted them. Like I could literally feel how they had felt based on what I had done or how I had acted. And a couple of things really stood out. One was my mother's love for me. It was clear that she loved me, and that was important. Like there was there was simultaneously a smallness to her love as a human being. The amount of love we can produce is small in the grand scheme of things, and yet it was also self-evident that it was important. Like it made a difference in the world that she loved me. That really stood out somehow. And then also, my father, he loved me, and he was a good father. But what really stood out for him was his anger and frustrations. And that, I have 3 kids now too, so I can relate. Screaming children, changing diapers. Having kids affects your marriage. If you're married with kids, you understand this. Um, Having me as a child had made some things more difficult for my dad, and there was a frustration to that I could literally feel. And it also stood out that even though having kids had caused my dad some frustrations, that that's just what it is to have kids. I hadn't done anything wrong. Crying as a baby, it wasn't my fault. um, this was like it was part of a bigger plan, and I hadn't done anything wrong. Um, so after my entire life, what I guess is commonly called a life review, was over, I was just floating there, and I noticed in the distance a very like a very faint light. It looked kind of like a star. I knew it wasn't a star though. Um, there was something instinctive or intuitive. Like I knew that this was an important light. I knew there was something really important about this light that I could see in the distance. But I didn't continue to focus on it. I shifted my attention away from that light, and just kind of back to my surroundings and what was going on, and myself. And um, I started thinking, I started having questions, and as I would have questions, answers would come to me in extreme detail. And one of the first questions I had was, what am I? I'm floating around. Like, what am I? What's going on? And somehow I was able to like see myself. Here in these bodies, we can't really look at ourselves, but that wasn't a restriction that I had in that state of being. So I was able to see myself, and I was like a transparent or translucent orb of consciousness. It kind of reminded me of an egg at that age. Um, I could see into myself, and there was more detail. It wasn't like completely hollow or anything, but I didn't understand what it is, and I couldn't explain it. But there was definitely a very faint but noticeable light coming from within me. Like there was an internal light somehow that that had a glow to it. Um, so anyway, uh, when I was satisfied at looking at with myself, I was back to floating around there. And the next question I had was, you know, where did I come from? How did I start? I think was my question. And a memory came back to me. This was something that I had, previously known, but had, I guess, either forgotten, or this knowledge had been hidden from me as I came to live this life. Anyway, the memory replayed for me, and it started as I was a soul, just like a round orb of consciousness, and I existed with hundreds or maybe thousands of other souls in a very bright, almost like an ocean of light. We were all together. We were kind of like friends, but we were all very, uh, you know, we were new. We had no experience. We were intelligent, but we had no experience, no background. We were very, we were happy, content. We were extremely safe. Like nothing could ever go wrong in this place that we were in. Everything was great, but we were basically ignorant and inexperienced, and we didn't really know anything about anything. But we were content, and we were all friends. We're all, it was a good way to exist. Anyway, periodically, these gifts would come down. There would be one for every soul. And as a kid, it kind of reminded me of a cookie. It was something that was nice to have, but we certainly didn't need it. And, periodically, these gifts would come down and we'd all get one, and we were happy to have it. And then one time, um, there was one fewer of these gifts or cookies that came down than there were souls that were there, and everybody knew it. Everybody, all these souls understood, and I recognized that all these souls around me, they all looked just like me, and we were all kind of like the same. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to take one of these cookies so that everyone else around me can have one. And when the last cookie came down and the last soul got it, um, I was very, very gently lifted up out of this group, and uh, a higher level being or entity contacted me, I guess, through telepathy, telepathically. It's like a mind to mind communication. And the communication was that, what I had done, giving up what I wanted to help those around me was extremely important. Like this was a really great thing that I had done to give up what I wanted so that those around me could have what they wanted. Like that was really important. And this entity communicated that it was my creator, that it had made me, and I was very much loved and cared for, and I was important. And not just that I was important and loved and cared for, but all these souls, all of us were equally loved and cared for. And I was pulled up, and I kept looking at all these souls that I had been with, but I was communicating with this higher level intelligence that I'll just call God for to make it simpler. Um, and God explained that I was deeply, deeply loved, and that God had prepared a wonderful existence for me and for the other souls, and that there was like so much happiness that and so many good things that awaited us, but that we were immature and we weren't ready for it. Um, I was told that we were created with free will, and that we hadn't been created to be uh, mindless. I don't know. I'm not sure I can explain it well, but we were created to have free will, and that was and that it was very important. Like this is a critical part of our creation, is that we have free will and that we can freely choose what we want to. God wants us to be able to choose what we want to, and that's important. And so God couldn't make us right off the bat extremely experienced. We had to be created very simple, and then grow and learn, and get experiences for ourselves. Otherwise it would like violate our free will. And anyway, God had created a way that we could learn quickly the lessons that we needed to learn. We could grow very quickly through this process. That it was going to be very difficult, but that we could get all of the negative stuff that we had to go through to learn, we could get it all out of the way quickly. And in the grand scheme of things, it was going to be extremely fast, and then we would enjoy a wonderful existence. And I said, okay, that sounds good. Um, I asked, couldn't you just change us to give us the kind of knowledge or whatever we needed to make us able to appreciate this wonderful existence? And God said, yes, absolutely. God is capable of changing us any way that God would want to, but that God didn't want to do it that way. Like that was a problem. We were created to have free will, and it was like God took that very, very seriously. That God would not trample on our free will, that God would allow us to make our own decisions, but that this process that God had created would allow us or encourage us to, make the right decisions, and that eventually we would make the kind of decisions we needed so that we could appreciate what God had in store for us. Now, in my interaction with God, God was loving, kind, compassionate, honest, uh, extremely confident. Like the confidence in this plan is hard to articulate, but God was extremely, extremely confident that this creation, this plan that God had come up with, that it was the best way to do things. Like there was no confusion about that, and that God had put um, significant thought into every little detail. Like none of this was just random or left to chance. Like God had really thought about everything down to the smallest detail. Um, but all of the good things that waited us for us to appreciate it, we needed to of our own free will, develop those same godly characteristics to be loving, compassionate, forgiving, kind, honest. It couldn't be faked or anything like that, and God wasn't going to change us, but that we had to of our own free will, develop all those traits for ourselves. So anyway, I said, okay, I had nothing, I had no background in this wonderful creation tells me this, and so I agreed with it. And I said, okay, that sounds good. And and then God asked if I would like to see God's face. That this would be an honor to see God's face, and I said, oh, okay, sure. And so when I agreed, my attention was shifted away from this group of souls I had been looking at that I had been with onto a giant. It was like a sun-like entity with I don't know, billions and billions of souls all mixed in together. Like it was kind of like the sea of souls that I had been in, where all the souls existed together. Only this was significantly more souls, and each soul was more advanced than we were. Like they had learned their lessons. They had gone through whatever it was I was going to go through, and they were mature, in I guess enlightened souls, and they all existed together and with God, and they were extremely, extremely happy. I couldn't even begin to describe the kind of happiness they had. There's no comparison to anything we have on earth. But um, some of these souls, they kind of like came to the surface to say hi to me. They understood that I was a new soul about to start out, and they came to the surface, and they wished me well. They understood the kind of journey I was about to go through, and they said, when you're done, you're gonna join us. And they were excited about having me come join them, because having one extra soul, like I would add something to this group of souls that no other soul could add, that I was unique and irreplaceable, and so was every other soul, and that we would add something to the happiness of all other souls that no other soul could add, and that was important, and so they were excited about that. Um, and for them to shift their attention off of what they had been doing to focus their attention on me, they were still extremely happy, but it was like a reduction in happiness to focus on me rather than to be doing what they had been doing. But that was just temporary. They would go back to doing what they had been doing anyway. um God asked me, are you sure you're willing to do this? And I said, yes, I'm sure. I'm willing to go through this experience based on what God had told me. It sounds like a good idea. And so God said, okay. And then it was like I was rushing to uh like I zoomed away very quickly to like some other place almost. Um, I think I was entering this physical realm that we're in now. And I was still communicating with God to telepathically, I guess, like God was still communicating with me, but there was all these different planets that I could go to, like just I don't know, thousands and thousands or millions and millions. There's too many to even count, really. But each of these different planets, it was all the same kind of. It was the same deal, you know. You would get your experiences um, on on one of these planets, and it was up to me to pick. Well, which one do you want to go to? And so, after seeing thousands and thousands, eventually we arrived at Earth, or you know, I saw Earth, and there was something about this planet, or you know, being here that really appealed to me, and I was absolutely positive this is where I want to go. And God again asked me, "Are you sure?" You know, any decision that I made, it was always there was always an "Are you sure?" question afterward. And once you agreed that second time, then the decision was made. Anyway, I agreed, yes, I'm sure. And so then that memory ended, and I was back to floating there, you know, in my neighbor's backyard, just kind of aimlessly floating around. And you know, my question had been answered. That's how I ended up on Earth. And you know, as I floated, a couple more things kind of stood out to me. One was that the like the grass and where I was a lot higher than it had been on Earth. Even though I was kind of like still on Earth, like the grass was higher. It was kind of disheveled and weedy. And I kind of now take that to mean that had something to do with my spirit, the state of my spirit at that time, you know. Anyway, I had another question. I thought, you know, well, how did I become Aaron? You know, why am I living this life as Aaron? And you know, again, this memory replayed for me, and I re-experienced what it was like to become Aaron. And I had been, you know, just a soul, and I had these guides that were helping me, and the guides had, you know, they had lived lives on Earth before, and they understood what I was getting into, and they had, you know, they had a life that they thought, hey, you know, you can lead this life. And so we took a look, and I would have become an extremely angry person if I'd agreed to this life, and the whole lifetime would be dominated by anger. And I don't know why this person that I would be so angry, but it was clear that anger would be the dominant focus of the entire life. And I flat out rejected it. I said, no, I'm not gonna live that life. I completely refused. And the guides, they respected that. They didn't try to push me or anything. They completely respected that. And I even thought, I can't believe any soul would agree to that. But I knew that eventually some soul would agree to that life. And you know, obviously their life would be a little different living that as that person than it would be for me. But somehow it would work for some other person. Like it would still benefit them. They would get something out of that difficult, hate-filled life. Anyway, we went and looked at another set of parents, and you know, this time I took a closer look at the parents. And you know, on Earth we have secrets, and you know, like there's lots about you I don't know, and you don't know stuff about me. But when I was picking my parents, like they had no secrets whatsoever. I knew everything about them, both in terms of their life that they were living, the kind of people they were, the kind of thoughts they had, but also like who they were spiritually. Like I understood where they were in their spiritual development. Like they had no secrets whatsoever from me, as I was picking the parents. So I took a close look at them. Um, I knew what kind of people they were, what kind of parents they would be, what kind of house they lived in, you know, where they might, what kind of places they might move. Like I had a really good understanding of what kind of people these were. Um, and so then, you know, we started looking at the kind of children they could have. And after seeing this angry guy I could have become, I wanted to be a female. I thought that being a female, I would be less likely to get into fights. I would be less likely to hurt someone else. And I didn't want to hurt anybody. That was very important to me. Um, and I thought, you know, if I'm a female, you know, I guess females are naturally less likely to hurt others. Anyway, um, my parents had the genes, like I guess there's some red haired, like I have some red haired cousins, for example. Um, and I really like that. Like the idea of being a redheaded girl really appealed to me. I knew the percentages of people on the planet that had red hair, and it's pretty small. And as a soul, I knew that and understood that, and I really liked the idea of having this kind of rare hair color. Um, but like there was something about there weren't a whole lot of those genes for my parents. That wasn't the dominant genes that they had. So I could have chosen a redheaded girl, but um, the other factors that came into play weren't as good for me, and I would have ended up being kind of like an awkward, socially, I don't know, difficult person, and I wouldn't have ever gotten married. I wouldn't have ever, probably even had a boyfriend. And that was a deal breaker for me. It was like, no, that's not going to work. So then I looked at redheaded boys and thought, well, maybe I'd be a redheaded boy. And then somehow there was even fewer options for that for my parents. Um, anyway, so I was like, okay, maybe this red hair won't work out for these parents. Let's look at brown hair. And so I looked at brown haired boys, and there was just oodles and oodles of options available for being a brown haired boys. Like, I guess that's the dominant genes my parents have. So I thought, okay, well, maybe this will work. Um, and I looked at, okay, I want to be like the best looking guy on the planet, extremely good looking. And my parents had those genes. Like I could have made that choice. Obviously I didn't. But anyway, I, uh, I realized that if I was extremely good looking, and my guides were helping me understand all this, that, there'd be certain temptations available to a really, the best looking guy on the planet kind of guy, that aren't available to all guys, right? Basically, I would have been too promiscuous, and I wouldn't have been able to resist that kind of temptation. And it was like self-evident that being too promiscuous was not a good thing spiritually. Like there's a downside to it, and so I was like, no, that's not going to work. So basically, I backed down the intelligence. I'm sorry, the looks, to where it was something that I thought was attractive, but not a model. You're not going to be on the magazine covers. Good looking, but nothing remarkable at all. And when I reached what I thought was the right level of attractiveness, I was like, okay, that looks good. And then likewise, we looked at intelligence, and I wanted to be the smartest guy on the planet. Just like an Einstein, Aristotle, someone like just crazy smart. And my parents had those genes that was available to me, but the guides helped me see that if I was that kind of smart, like I would look down on other people because they weren't as smart. I would be kind of like a loner. I wouldn't want to work in teams or groups because I was smarter than everybody. I would become an atheist. I would become extremely arrogant. Like there was a lot of downsides for me to become, uh, you know, uh, a super genius. And when I saw those downsides, I realized no, that's not going to work at all. So just like I did with looks, we backed down the intelligence to something intelligent, but nothing remarkable. No Einstein or anything like that. And when I arrived at what I thought was a good intelligence, I said, okay, that looks good. Um, it won't cause me the kinds of problems that being a super genius would have caused me. Um, you know, I had a complete idea of what this body was going to look like, and down to the most intimate detail. Like I knew what I was getting into, and when I arrived at what I thought was the right body, and the guides agreed. They were like, yes, that this is all looking fine. Um, then the guides had some ideas for, basically they had some plans for how my life would play out that I needed to agree to. Like some of this stuff couldn't happen without my agreement. One thing was I was going to have my nose broken as a teenager when I think I was 12. Anyway, I had to agree to this, and I saw that it would be extremely difficult, not extremely difficult, but difficult, but that it would somehow benefit me spiritually, and so I agreed to it. And then my guide showed me that okay, there's this shoulder injury you're going to have, and I needed to agree to it, and I agreed to it. And then then the other shoulder, you know I was shown that I would have a more serious injury, and but somehow it would help me with my development, and I agreed to it. Likewise, as a teenager, I was shown, you know, this wasn't exactly something planned, but as a side effect of the genes I had chosen, I would have horrible acne as a teenager, and I needed to agree to that. And I took a closer look at that and realized that, having this really really bad acne would actually help me develop spiritually. Like it would be really difficult to go through a couple years of really bad acne, but it would help me with my development. And so I I agreed to it. And one thing that really stands out about that, probably 2 years where I had really bad acne, is that from a spiritual perspective, it seemed extremely short. The whole lifetime seemed short, but the span of 2 years seemed like almost nothing from a spiritual perspective. I was willing to put myself through 2 years of difficulty, um, without even too much thought. It was almost like nothing going through 2 years of pain and frustration, because it would help me grow, and it would help fit this whole plan for my life together. So anyway, I agreed to all that, you know, and then my guides pointed out, hey, your father has a bit of an anger issue, you know. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but basically they pointed out this guy's got some anger issues. And I took a closer look at that and saw what kind of person my father was. And yeah, does and did have some anger issues, especially when I was little growing up. But there was a lot about my father I liked. A lot of the stuff he would teach me. Um, the positives outweighed the negatives, and then the anger issues also would somehow help me with my development. Anyway, I agreed to all that, and so the guides, now that all these decisions had been made, the guides basically said, okay, are you sure? And we re-looked at everything that had been selected for this body and planned for my life. And I said, yes, I agree that I'll go through this. And so with that, the decision was made. I was able to witness my conception. And, I don't mean the physical act of my parents. I mean the like I guess where the sperm and the egg join and this new body is created. And it was a beautiful, like it's a significant event from the spiritual side, and really beautiful. And I got to witness that, and that was really cool. And then, you know, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but as I'm piecing together now, I I kind of like part with this new body and then part free to roam around. And I think I would roam around as a free soul waiting for this new body to grow. And I wasn't fully merged with this new body until I think right before birth. Um, anyway, I'm getting a little off track, but after all these decisions had been made and I agreed to become Aaron, that memory ended. And so then I was back to floating next to my body. And then I had another question. Excuse me. Uh, I wanted to know, what happens to souls after they leave Earth. And so I was re-shown stuff that I had previously seen. Uh, I was re-shown different realms or places where some souls are after they leave Earth. So first, I saw a really horrible place where the souls that were there, they had a body that was kind of like it was almost like a bug. It was kind of like a monstrous, uh, ugly bug with instead of arms, they had these long claws. They're really hideous, and they were absolutely miserable. Like the level of misery that these souls were in is hard to describe. It's way worse than anything um, someone on Earth would experience. And they were just completely filled with hatred. They absolutely hated each other, and they hated themselves, and they were angry and mad, and they had no knowledge of a past or hope for a future. They were just all they knew was hatred and anger and misery, and they would constantly fight with each other. And no matter how bad they would wound each other, those wounds would, they were extremely painful for these souls, but they would quickly heal and get better. But they just kept fighting and wounding each other, and it was just horrible. But eventually, one of these souls stopped fighting with the other souls. It actually tried to help another, another one of these horrible creatures. It tried to help this other one that had been knocked down. And when that happened, these angels or beings of light, I'm not sure who they were, but above this whole horrible battle, um, there was some I guess what I'd call angels. I don't know. A being of light like swooped down and picked up this soul that had tried to help the other soul. Picked him up and pulled him up out of the horrible battle, and basically said, as soon as this soul decided to stop fighting with the other souls, then it doesn't belong here anymore. It no longer belongs in this horrible mess, and that God had a way that that soul could continue with its progression and to advance, and that none of the souls that were in this horrible fight, none of them would be there forever. Every single one of them would eventually be able to leave when they were ready. Um, but it was like God wasn't going to force them to stop fighting. They had to make that choice for themselves. But when they did, God had a way for them to, continue their progression, to move upward and become better souls. And anyway, then I also saw a place where souls were just kind of standing around in darkness. That they were extremely confused and they didn't know what was going on. And there was a female soul that was, or person, that was just using profanity the whole time, just cussing nonstop. Uh, and the profanity that this soul was speaking, or I don't know if it's even speaking or thinking. It all works a little bit differently there. Anyway, it was way worse than any profanity you would hear on Earth. Um, somehow it was just a lot worse. Anyway, these souls were just kind of confused and unhappy. They weren't miserable, but they were unhappy and you know just standing around in darkness and didn't really know what was going on. But there was higher level souls that had come from some happier place, and they were there trying to help these lower level souls. They had a way that that they could help these souls progress to move to a happier place. But the souls that were in this darkness, they were mistrustful of others. For them, they were not trying to help other souls. They were not trying to help other people. So the very thought that someone would be there to help them was confusing and foreign. They had a great difficulty accepting that. But eventually, one of the souls agreed to go with these one of these unhappy souls agreed to go with one of these happier, higher level souls who was going to help them. And so they took this unhappy soul away, so somehow they had a way that they could help that soul. And then I saw another place where it was kind of like Earth, where there was like a dirt road and there was these ugly buildings, and the souls there were kind of unhappy, but certainly not miserable. And they were just I don't know, they were going about kind of like they had lived on Earth. Um, and again, there was a higher level soul there that was trying to help them, and that there was a way that they could move to happier realms. Um, then I saw another place that was a lot like Earth, only this was like a happy place, and there was buildings and roads and people, and I remember a lamp post that was there that was looked kind of like a lamp post you'd see on Earth. Um, and the souls, they were really happy. Everyone was thrilled. It was so much better than their life had been on Earth, and they were all happy. And then I saw this other realm that was like a city of light. Like there was like tall towers there, and um, all the buildings and the people were like glowing with the light. They were all transparent. You could kind of like see through them. Um, and the whole city was like a giant city of light, and everyone there was really really happy, extremely happy. And then of course, as I mentioned previously, the souls that were with God, that I guess had been through all these stages of development, they were the happiest I had seen. They were just I don't know, unbelievably happy. So anyway, so I saw some of these different levels or realms that souls go to when they die. And I was back to floating there next to my body, just kind of trying to figure out what to do and what was going on. But again, with every little moment, I was becoming more aware, more intelligent. I understood what was going on, and I had the thought that I could go home when I was done with this life. Somehow that was like a realization that hit me really hard. Oh my gosh, I can go home when I'm done with this life, and I was so happy. And then it's like I remembered I had these friends, and we had this intense, you know, friendship, way beyond something that you would have on Earth. And I was just thrilled this idea of going back home, and almost like as soon as I had that realization, this higher level being came at me, and this was like a being of light, absolutely beautiful. And basically, the being said, "You are not to leave your body." And um, and then it was like, bam! I was back in my body. I didn't have any problem breathing, um, but I was back. And I looked back at my friends, and they were still there. My brother had realized that I had been just laying on my body, just been laying there for I guess about 30 seconds. And so he finally came to check on me. But when he saw me stand up, he went back and he was going to play with the friends. But I immediately went home. I tried to describe the whole thing to my mom, but um, at the time I was not very articulate. I had trouble with a lot of I had like a speech problem. I went to speech therapy for years in school to get better at speaking. And anyway, I just couldn't at all explain what had happened to her. But I would think about this experience daily for months. Try to understand what had happened, trying to make sense of it all, which was kind of hard at 6 years old. But eventually, maybe about 6 months after the experience, I was contacted uh, by these same guides that I had worked with to pick the body. Basically, I knew exactly who it was. They contacted me mentally and essentially said, um, "Hey, this experience that you had is causing problems in your life. We need to hide it. We need to hide it from you." But because I have free will, they couldn't just hide that without my permission, because that would violate my free will. So they needed my permission to hide it. So they asked for that permission, and I said, "Well, I didn't say this. This was all telepathic communication." Anyway, I communicated, don't you want people to know this stuff? It seems like you would want people to know about God and how things work. And they said, basically, yes, of course we want people to know this. But for you, this knowledge is causing problems. You're not able to live life as it was intended. You can never develop faith because you have experiential knowledge of God. Like, you've seen it for yourself. So you can never have faith, or you can't develop the kind of faith that you're meant to develop on Earth. And I asked, well, why does that matter? Why is it important? And they explained it to me, but I couldn't understand their explanation. It was too complicated for me as a 6 year old to understand. And so they said, basically, look, you just need to understand that faith is important, and we need to hide these memories from you. So I agreed to it. And then, you know, I basically didn't think about that experience again for years. I went through my life. When I was about 12 years old, I got into a fight and got my nose broken, which was something that I agreed to, but I had no idea I had agreed to that, and that was a difficult experience. I had horrible acne as a teenager for a couple of years. I dislocated my shoulder when I was 19, and then I broke and dislocated this shoulder when I was, I think, about 35, and I had to get surgery. I had no idea I'd agreed to any of that, and these were kind of difficult. I got married. I'm married now with 3 kids, and then about, I think it was about 12 years ago, I was reading a Newsweek article. You know, Newsweek used to be kind of a famous magazine. My parents had a subscription to it, so I had a copy. Somehow I was reading it anyway. There was an article about Dr. Eben Alexander. He's kind of a famous near-death experience person who he used to be a neurosurgeon. Anyway, he had a near-death experience, and he was hooked up to all these brain monitors, and he had this vivid near-death experience while he was completely brain dead, and the brain monitors showed all that. Anyway, he explained all that in his book. And when I read that article, I thought, wow, this is amazing. I guess all this stuff about God is real. And it was kind of, I guess, one of the first times that I had really accepted God like as real. Like I had more faith after reading that article than I guess I had previously. Somehow it was different, I guess. Anyway, it was almost like as soon as I said to myself, "Wow, this is amazing. I guess God is real." Um, then my memories of my own experience came back to me, and that was really kind of shocking and amazing. Um, I would say about half of that knowledge or memories of what happened came back kind of like almost right away, and then half of it, as I think about it, I remember bits and pieces a little bit more and more. Um, so anyway, that was about 12 years ago, and I've since read a number of other near death experiences, which helps me understand mine. And as an adult, I'm able to piece together what happened better than I could as a 6 year old. So a lot of the stuff I couldn't understand at six, it makes a whole lot more sense as an adult. Um, so anyway, that kind of leads me to this, where I've shared my experience a couple times, and now I'm here with you.
Wow. Like the whole time you've been talking, I've had a permanent smile on my face. Thank you so much, Aaron, for sharing your layered experience. Like this is so juicy. It's so juicy. And yes, it's a good thing, Aaron.
Okay,
Juicy is
good.
a good thing. It's so much. Where do I start? Where do I start? So first of all, a lot went on for 30 seconds for you to be
Yeah.
out for 30. And we all talk about how time is different
Hmm.
on this realm and that realm. That is an incredible amount of information. Okay, so I wanted to start out by saying what you talked about when God offered you, would you like to see my face?
Hmm.
And what you saw was many faces
Yes.
that were high in vibration. I wanted to say that is very consistent with another near-death experiencer that was saying that we all make up the body of God, that
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
is all of us,
Right.
right? And so when you said that, I'm like, wow, that is incredible. That I've heard that before.
Hmm.
Um, I also what also is key is when you talked about that our creation, the key to our creation is our ability to have free will.
Right.
You know, that free will is very important. And I love that. And that is a consistent theme throughout your entire experience.
Yeah.
Free will. So, okay. So I wanted to ask you, so the other planet, you said you were able to see thousands of other planets,
Right.
and somehow you gravitated toward Earth. So my first question is, were the planets, did you encounter the vibration, a higher vibration, a lower vibration?
Right.
And do you know if you received knowledge that if those planets had free will? Because I've
Right.
often been told by non-physical beings that there are some planets who do not, the inhabitants do not have free will, and that
Okay.
Earth is a free will planet. So I just didn't know if you had that knowledge, if you were able to kind of perceive that or not.
Right. So a lot of what I saw, like I don't remember
Okay.
about all these different planets. So I couldn't really answer if they were free will or not. But
Okay.
my understanding was for me, it would have been kind of a similar experience where you're living a life kind of like this. Only whatever the particulars are for these different planets. But about free will or not, I don't know. And I wish I remember like what did the inhabitants look like, but I don't. I think that would be cool, but I have no idea what the details of all these different planets. Only that I certainly think they're out there, and you know, if you look at how big this universe is, like there's no way that this planet is the only planet with spiritual life on it.
Yes.
So the way I see it, uh, there's you know there's souls all over this universe doing stuff kind of like we are, but as you mentioned, you know, some of them might have extremely different uh, you know different different stuff going on different planets. I don't know.
Yeah. I love that you wanted to be a redheaded girl. When I heard that, I was like, I love that. What struck me, Aaron, is how, and I'm assuming, okay, so I'm assuming that when you were making the decisions as a soul to be Aaron, this body, be in this body that you're in now, that this wasn't from fresh creation. That's just an assumption of mine. It may be wrong or not,
Right,
but I love, and what I have noticed is that when you were in your decision making process, deciding on this body as Aaron, you had a higher perspective. You did not
right,
want to hurt people. You did not want to be angry. You wanted to give love. You had a higher
right.
intention. That struck me. So I love that.
Yeah, you know, I saw the strengths and abilities of this body, that like my natural traits, and I saw, you know, my thinking as a soul looking at this was like, okay, this guy's got to be capable of being useful to society. Like he's going to be able to produce something that's good for the planet, you know, and that was important to me. And then also, like periodically, as all of these choices were being made as a soul trying to pick this body, I would periodically think, how am I able to pick all this? How am I even able to choose this? And then like I would remember something like a higher level information and be like, oh yeah, that's right. And then I'd immediately like lose that information again so I could keep making the decision. So it's like I was at some kind of level with the amount of intelligence and knowledge to make all these decisions, but it was still there was like a lot of information that uh you know that I was leaving behind to come start this life.
Um, I love when you talked about as a baby, before you were born, you were kind of in and out of the body.
Right.
Again, that's so consistent with what I've heard from other authors, even
Okay.
about our time before life, that the soul is kind of checking the body out. Is this a good fit? Still, even checking the family out.
Right.
Do I still want to do this? And so I love that you were able to share that and validate that with your experience.
Yeah, and it's like I was really excited for for the knowledge I was going to gain. The like it was just self-evident that I was going to learn a lot by going through this life, and I was, you know, as a soul, I was really excited about that. And one thing that really stands out, that's kind of vivid, uh, is you know, I'm sorry if this sounds a little strange, but I remember like zooming around in the clouds like shortly before I was born, because it's like that was my last taste of freedom, and then I was going to be trapped in this, you know, infant body. And so, you know, I guess I wanted to be free a little bit before, you know, before I came trapped.
That's amazing. That's incredible. That's incredible. And it's so, I love the layers that we are. I love how very layered that we all are. And so I wanted to share with the viewers right now, that if you're having a hard time integrating the experience that Aaron has talked about, I want to tell you, it's been written about, it's been validated over and over and over again. And I'm going to show y'all a few books. There's Between Death and Life by Delores Cannon. She's a very popular author. And y'all, I love, love, love. If you want to delve into this stuff about body selection and all that stuff, Michael Newton, Dr. Michael Newton,
Okay.
Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. And when I tell y'all that this is entertaining information, I could not put these books down. It talks about how we pick our bodies and just everything that Aaron talked about. Aaron, even when you talked about dialing up, which I find so incredible, dialing up or dialing down the
Oh, right.
physical attractiveness or
Yeah,
the intelligence and the impact of all those decisions, right? Like if you were super attractive, you may not evolve as much and grow,
right.
right? Because we all like pretty people, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and the how
Yeah.
you look totally affects how people treat you here. And you know, it might seem like a small deal how attractive someone is, but it really affects how we get treated. And that was self-evident. That was crystal clear as a soul picking a body.
That is, and that's, and I've heard that before. I've heard that before. And it's always a soul level decision. Some people choose to come in these lifetimes with illnesses. And
Right.
there is always a soul level decision. And I always say that's why it's important to not judge ourselves, to not judge our bodies and be angry at our bodies. Uh, Many times we've made these decisions before we were born, and we wanted them. There was a soul level decision that why we wanted to have an experience, you know, and it does go into our evolution.
Yeah.
Um, so
I,
I just all of
I
it.
view it like taking classes, like if you want to become a doctor, like you got to take some really hard classes, and some of that stuff's no fun.
Mhm.
But when you get through your classes and you're a doctor making good money, hopefully doing cool stuff. And I kind of view life like that. To really get a big gain, you need to go through something kind of difficult because it gives you the experience that there's no other way to get.
And I also love that that your memory came back just from you reading an article that triggered and opened a portal for your faith.
Right.
At that time is when these incredible memories came back. That moment must have been so impactful for you to then
Yeah.
start remembering all this stuff. How was that for you?
Uh, it was pretty amazing. I was definitely happy to have those memories back, and then it took me a little while to understand it all. It was a kind of a process, but it was really amazing. And to me, that was one of the happiest days of my life to get that knowledge back and to get a better understanding of me and this world and how things work. And it helps put my problems in perspective, and
Yeah.
it helps me cope with the difficulties of life a whole lot better.
I love that you said it helps me put my problems in a different perspective.
Yeah.
That goes back to the Course in Miracles lesson for you. Is let me recognize my problems have been solved. And I think the biggest thing is understanding that number one, these experiences are temporary, right? But number two, that we're so much higher than our bodies, than our
Yeah.
emotions, than our life challenges, right? It's just an incredible, once you integrate your experience and this incredible truth that we are, it seems that it would make everything so much lighter, right? Everything
Right.
doesn't have to be life or death, and it, like you said, it brings it back into perspective.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I still get worked up about all kinds of dumb stuff like everybody else, but sometimes it does help me to calm down and realize, look, it's life has difficulties, but that's just how it is. And, it's okay.
Yeah,
And
I've also heard you talk about that you influence, and this is so, y'all, this is so important. This is so important that to understand that we are not victims of the world we see. It's so important that even down to our names, that you influence your
right.
parents to give you your name.
Yeah, that's something I didn't talk about today, but yeah, as I was a soul, I was able to see all the different names that were available, and there was about, I guess, about 10 names that my parents were already leaning towards, and the name Aaron Thomas Green, like, it really appealed to me for a number of reasons. It has a whole bunch of hidden references, and but like it's like the perfect name for me. And so I could have, because it's my name, I guess, we're given a little more leeway to influence other people. And so I was able to kind of, I don't know, push or encourage my parents in one way or another. And so I was easily able to, help them to select this name for me. Um,
I love that.
but, but it's
I
cool
love
to
that.
know, to know my name and why I picked it. And it's pretty neat.
Yeah. What purpose do you think that it had for you to dislocate your shoulders? What was the soul
Right.
of, like, what was the purpose for that? Do you know?
No, I don't specifically know. I was 19 and I dislocated this one and then, got it back in. And then I broke and dislocated this one when I was roughly 35, and I had to get surgery. And I had to wear my arm in a sling for like, I don't know, a month or two. And that was pretty difficult. It's kind of funny though, as a soul looking at all this and planning this stuff out, I saw the kind of injury I would have. And I asked my guides, are they going to be able to fix that? And the guide said, basically, yes, they will have the technology at that time to fix your shoulder. And it's funny, we looked at the technology available, 10 years ago, and it seemed, from a spiritual perspective, it seemed so primitive. Like this planet, like it was so backwards and primitive, and they've got so
Wow.
far to go. It's pretty funny, and, and it just reminds you that, look, humanity, like we don't have it all figured out. We got a long way to go. It shouldn't be that hard to see. You look around you, there's lots of bad things going on in the world, like that shouldn't be, that don't need to be going on. But it just stood out that how primitive the technology was for fixing a shoulder. um it really stood out. And it's kind of funny looking back on it.
That's hilarious. We do have a long way to go. We do. We do. We
Yeah,
should be flying right
I
now.
mean, we've come a long way, and
We have.
we should never forget that, but we still have a
Yeah.
long way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I gotta address this. I gotta talk about this. So it sounds like, Aaron, you were able to see different levels of, and I'll put it in quotes, hell and heaven. It
Right.
sounds like you were able to see kind of different levels. And I love, there was so much of what you talked about that I love, right? So I've heard you say, and I want to talk about this, um, that we kind of go in a dimension, right? Once the bodies expire, right here, because there's no death. But once our bodies expire, we go to a dimension that is consistent with our vibration.
Right.
And so you talked about, this dimension of, I'll say hell. I don't think you use that word, but where these souls were angry. They looked like these kind of monsters.
Yeah.
They hated each other. But it's not a God that sent them to that realm. I would love
Right.
for you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it is, God respects our free will. So what is God going to do with someone who hates everybody, wants to kill everybody, wants to torture other people? God respects that free will. God will allow you to be that kind of person. But what God does is, God, everything has been arranged such that we end up with others who are like ourselves. So if you want to kill other people, okay, or kill other souls, hurt others, you can be like that, but you're going to be with others who are the same way, and that's no fun. It's not a good experience. And likewise, you know if you're a loving, kind, compassionate person, you're going to be with other people who are like that as well, and that's going to be happy. That's going to be a good existence. And also, you can't just take one soul from one vibration and just kind of force them into be with a bunch of other souls of a different vibration. Like one is the low level vibration that it's like they're not comfortable. They become incredibly uncomfortable, and they don't feel right, and so they want to leave right away. And then also, like, they would lower the vibration of this higher vibration group, like they would make everyone there a little bit less happy, and so it just doesn't work. So it's all arranged such that souls are with others who are like them, and it's way more than just like one heaven and one hell. It's more complicated than that. There's just I don't know, thousands of millions different levels depending on each person's particular views and actions, and how they want to treat others. And you know it's just more complicated than a one or the other kind of thing. And my understanding is, as we practice more godly traits like kindness, compassion, acts of service, all the different manifestations of love that are out there, we slowly and gradually increase our vibration, and move ourselves to better, uh, better vibrations, or better levels. And that's one of the beauties of this life is, like, as a soul, I couldn't give up something to help someone else, but here on this planet, I can do something that you know is hard for me, but that helps those around me, and that's just not possible as a soul. And so it just kind of shows you, why it's a benefit to be here in the first place, is that we have opportunities to help others that don't exist as a spirit or a soul.
Thank you for that. I also love, Aaron, I just, your message, your experience really is so healing to hear. I love when you talked about, as soon as in these dimensions, right, these darker dimensions, uh, as soon as a soul says, you know what, I don't want to fight anymore, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
there's a higher vibrational being right there
Yeah.
ready to take them to another dimension or the next level in their evolution. I love that.
Yeah, and that was consistent through the three different negative levels I saw. In each one of those, the unhappy or miserable souls, like there was helpers, or workers, or whoever, or angels, or whatever they were, like there was someone there ready to help when those souls were ready to receive that help, or ready to ask for the help, or you know it was like when they showed the least little bit of interest in getting help, and stop hurting others, like there was someone to assist them with that, and help them move in the right way.
So there are a few things you said that I just got to mention. I got to mention. Hearing you talk about that, the different dimensions, the scripture that just kept coming to me that I have to say is the scripture in the Bible that talks about God saying, in my house, I have many rooms.
Right.
I have many rooms. And I thought of that. Like you said, it's not one heaven or one hell. Like, we have many vibrations, right? And we tend to want to be around people that vibrate on our level. Happy people don't like to be around miserable people, and miserable people do not like being around happy people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I thought about that. It's so cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I think about sometimes, like, the fish in the ocean. Have you ever seen these fish that live in the bottom of the ocean? They're like all hideous looking and they never see the light. Like I feel like there's a parallel there between
Mm,
uh like I think that's deliberate, that there's a parallel between the physical animals in the ocean, animals on the planet, and the spiritual side. And these low level, these poor low level fish are hideous, and they all eat each other, and and then you got like birds in the sky that are flying around, but I guess they're pretty happy.
that's something else I've heard you talk about, Aaron, is on the other side, right? As souls, we look like our vibration.
Yeah,
If we're
yeah.
higher in vibration and we have love and compassion and all that, we're beautiful. And if
Mhm.
we're hateful, that's also demonstrated in our physical experience. Did you want to talk or our physical appearance? Did you
Right.
want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, here on Earth, the way people look and the way they think or the way they act are two different things.
Mhm.
And what I saw on the other side makes me think that uh, the way you look as a excuse me, as a soul, um, it's completely dependent on your mindset and how loving you are. And if you hate others, that shows as that's ugly. And like that's literally how you look. There's no lipstick or makeup that you can put on as a soul to cover up
Mhm.
your hateful nature. If you want to be beautiful, you've got to become loving, kind, compassionate, honest, forgiving. All these good positive traits that that people have seen God associate with God. Like you need to develop those for yourself if you want to be a beautiful soul.
Aaron, you took me to church today. You taking me to church. I love this. I love this. I think about when you talked about even down to like when the acne, that was a huge, they needed your agreement to that. And so what I thought about that when you said you experienced acne and it's something that you had agreed to, I thought, wow, if they needed his agreement with a decision about acne,
Right.
surely, surely the life challenges that we face, whether it's illness, whether it's debilitating illness, whether it's financial stressors, whatever it is that we have chosen, if it's a consistent life challenge, if this gentleman had to agree on having acne, surely on a soul level, it was chosen. And what I want to emphasize with that is that just like we had the free will to choose it, we have the free will to gain the lessons from it and move past it, y'all.
Right.
This is about us stepping into our personal power and recognizing that we are the orchestrators of our lives, that nothing is happening to us, that we are happening to life. And so I just wanted to talk about that. Did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. One thing I would add is like I remember there was a couple things in life that the guides wanted me to go through that I didn't agree to, that I said no to. Like there was a couple things that I turned down, and I now think that probably I would have gotten more out of life if I had agreed to these things. And then, but like I know this is really hard for a lot of people who are going through something extremely difficult. It's really hard for them to hear this, and they don't want to hear that, hey, maybe you agreed to this.
Yeah.
And I can respect that, and I understand. But I asked the question, you're going through some kind of crazy hardship, which I would not minimize in any way, but how much of a benefit would you need to agree to go through this hardship? And if you're willing to hear it, I would say, hey, the benefit that you're going to experience from this hardship was so significant that you agreed to this hardship. And imagine how much of a huge benefit it would have to be for you to agree to whatever hardship you're going through. like for me personally, the acne, like that was really difficult to go through middle school, seventh and eighth grade with horrible acne. Like the kids are not nice. Okay. They did not treat me well. The acne was, it's like the worst 1% of like the worst one or two kids in the school, like that bad of acne.
Yeah.
But I agreed to it because the benefit to me outweighed that difficulty. Like it was a big enough benefit that it was worth it to go through that hardship. And and I know some people are going through some really, really tough stuff in life. And I can only imagine what kind of huge benefit God has in store for them for going through something so hard.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And none of us talk about this from a naive place. I've been very open, Aaron, about my own experience.
Right.
I have I've had suicidal ideation before I woke up, which is kind of why I do this. So I wanted to die
Yeah.
very much so. So when we talk about it, it's not from a naive place. The challenges can be debilitating, but just to remember, right? Just to remember on a certain level, I knew that I could get through this.
Right.
A certain level as a soul, this would be beneficial to me. When you hold that belief, that knowledge, right? When you hold that space, that perspective, that higher perspective, you create differently from that perspective, and you will create peace in your life, right?
Right. Right. And I think it's also important to remember, you know, we're not just here helping ourselves, we're here helping each other. And that, even though you're going through something difficult, you can still help those around you. And
Yes.
if you're willing to have that mindset to help others around you, that it kind of reduces your own burden a little bit because you're not focused on yourself all the time. But then also it helps you grow to a better vibration because you're a little more focused on those around you and trying to help others, which spiritually is a great mindset to have.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron. Of course, I could have you on for a whole other hour for this. But I'm not gonna do that to you. Do you have any last words of wisdom that you would like to share to the viewers before we close out?
uh I guess I'm going to quote Jesus here and say, love your neighbor. Like it's important. And by love, I mean compassion, kindness, acts of service, honesty, humility, uh, trustfulness, all of those traits. Like we need to actually live that way and, love our neighbors that way. And in doing so, we're helping ourselves to, achieve a greater happiness in this life and in the next. And we're also helping those around us. So, I just encourage people to try to live the way Jesus instructed.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. I've also heard you say, no matter how bad we messed up, God still loves us.
Right.
And that's also a beautiful message that you have shared with us as well. What are you, is there anything else you wanted to share with the viewers in terms of, or do you provide any services?
Oh, right.
I know that let me tell you this, Aaron, people are going to want to talk to you. People
Right.
are going to want to just I just know there's going to be questions and because it's such a rich experience that you've shared. Are you open for people reaching out to you? And if so, what is your preferred method?
Yeah. I've had people contact me mostly through Facebook. Uh, Aaron Thomas Green on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. If someone wants to say something or ask me any questions, I'm happy to have a conversation. I could be emailed at Aaron Green 1975 at gmail.com. And I'll try to respond to anybody who wants to ask me anything. I'm working on a book. It's not ready yet. It might be a while. Um, I'd like to eventually have a book that I can, you know, just give to anyone who who wants to read about my experience. But anyone who wants to contact me is welcome to. I will certainly try to respond as well as I can.
I'm so excited to hear that you're working on a book. I'm so excited to hear that you're working on a book. I would love to have you join us again. It's an excuse for me to invite you on
All
again.
right. Well,
Once that,
I'll certainly let you know if I, whenever I get this thing finished.
yeah, once that's complete, yes, I would love to have you on. And yes, 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 you have to memorialize that dynamic experience. I'm so excited that now we are able to share your kind of experiences through the near-death experience platform. This is essential. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
really appreciate what you're doing. I think it's important to, you
yeah,
know, to raise awareness for these experiences and, hopefully help people understand God better.
yeah, and that's what it is, reshaping our perception and view of God, healing those things that we've heard about God that are not true, and also recognizing that we are the creators and that
Yeah.
we create our lives. So, Aaron, I'm going to read you your closing remarks.
All right.
It's been just such a beautiful experience having you on. So, Aaron, the incredible amount of detail you've been able to retain of your near-death experience reminds me of the messenger in the Bible sharing the good news. You come with gifts of life on your tongue, bringing forth priceless information of our origin as divine beings of light before we encountered the veil of forgetfulness as we came through the birth canal. Though most of us are unaware, your experience is a reminder that we all chose our parents, we all chose our bodies, we all chose our life challenges and other circumstances of our lives. Though many of us are appalled to conceive that we would choose such hardships, I do admit that we made these decisions under the influence. Under what influence, you ask? We crafted these broad circumstances of our lives under the influence of complete perfection, under the influence of unconditional love, and under the influence of the knowledge that we can never really be damaged. We made these decisions with the understanding that we would be engaging in a holy experience in form, one that would require courage, faith, and resilience. And what I love about your near-death experience, Aaron, and the impeccable memory of your pre-birth planning is that you help us all as we engage in this process of remembering that which we are. Your experience helps us not only release the chains of victimhood, but it puts us in alignment with the truth that we are divine beings of light who have made ourselves small in form to fit within these bodies, to carry these bodies around and have this illusory experience. What beautiful fruits of life are produced from such knowledge. It gives us permission to stand up individually and collectively and finally get in the driver's seat of this holy experience that we are creating in every moment of now. Whether we are creating consciously or unconsciously, it's a beautiful reminder of the personal power that we carry. And for this reason, Aaron, what you are doing by sharing your dynamic experience is what you are doing is holy indeed. You are doing holy work. Our entire purpose for being here is to wake up and remember our greatness. And every time that you share your experience, you give someone an opportunity to remember and transform their lives from a nightmare to a happy dream. To say, whoa, I did this. I orchestrated this. Now let me create something new. So thank you for sharing your good news without hesitation. It is out of love that you impart this precious knowledge with the world. Thank you so much for sharing this time and space with us, Aaron. As an awakened being, you add to the vibration of remembrance, and it reverberates throughout this dimension and beyond. Oftentimes, high vibrational non-physical beings refer to us, if they're channeled through someone, they refer to us as blessed beings. And we are, Aaron, we are blessed beings to have this incredible opportunity, this exercise in form that allows us as fractals of God to slow down time and demonstrate our beauty, our love, and our light. What an incredible time on this planet right now, y'all. We fought to be here. Robert Schwartz, the author of Your Soul's Plan, talked about there's about 3 souls to 1 body. So every soul that wanted to come here right now, we wanted to be here. And so if you can integrate that belief, no matter what you're going through, to know that you add to the vibration of the collective, and you wanted to be here. So keep sharing your experience, Aaron. Keep sharing your experience. It is a critical piece within this tapestry of colors that we are all creating. I'm so honored that you have joined us today. Your experience is so beautiful and life affirming. Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence.
All right. Well, thank you, Loretta. I appreciate you having me on, and thank you for all your kind words. I appreciate it. I hope I've done half of what you said, and I hope I've been helpful to somebody.
Yes. I'm still excited down to the last minute of this conversation. So, Aaron, we end with a heart.
All right.
Yes, I love it. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. I just hope you have enjoyed this video as much as I have. Aaron can be reached on Facebook if you want to reach out to him on Messenger and just kind of, talk to him a little bit. I'm sure there's many questions I didn't ask that you might have wanted to know. So thank you everyone for joining. Please subscribe and share with others, and let's do this God thing. Let's do this light thing, this love thing. All right. We'll talk to you later. Is there anything you wanted to say, Aaron?
I appreciate the opportunity to share my experience, and I appreciate what you do. I think this is great.
Yes. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Love you. Until next time. Bye-bye.